How much damage, Lieutenant?
Can't tell. Long-range sensors are still offline.
In the last episode, we discussed how the Enterprise E's long-range sensors were down and somehow short-range sensors didn't work within the Terran system, even though they've always been able to scan an entire system when long-range sensors didn't work. Well, at least until this movie. I've gotten quite a few comments that attempt to address this. Some have stated that passive sensors and the fact that the view screen worked could show why they're able to get the information that they did. I remain highly skeptical. The movie clearly leads us to believe that long-range sensors were God and that they had been disabled. Unless we needed plot convenience, at which point they're able to get whatever they wanted. Some have tried to counter that maybe it wasn't the sensors, maybe Data was looking at the stars, which is fair, but he quite clearly taps a console to get the information that he did. Others have tried to argue that the passive sensors picked up the constellations, but that begs the question, how do passive sensors work so effectively, and what's the need for the long-range sensors if they work this well? It's just messy. Regardless of how the information is obtained it is, so moving forward, we see the captain advising the computer of the type of clothing that will be needed to beam down.
We have to go down there, find out what happened. Data, Beverly, you're with me. Have a security team meet us in Transporter Room 3. Computer, mid-21st century civilian clothing. Number 1, you have the bridge.
He takes a large part of the main cast and ultimately goes down to the planet himself. Even though we always hear that the captain's place is on the bridge, but whatever. At this point, I'll go ahead and address a very minor criticism that has existed ever since Red Letter Media decided to point it out. I hear it enough that I'll go ahead and address it, but I don't think it's a big deal to most people. Picard specifically tells the computer what kind of clothing he wants or needs while he's on the bridge, without specifying where to give him the clothing. Honestly, this is simply movie shorthand so the audience doesn't get confused why the cast aren't in their uniforms when they beam down. Personally, I think they should have trusted the audience to realize what happened, but whatever. In universe, it's quite likely that the computer knew that there was a set point to replicate these clothes, or transporter technology may have been so refined that once they were beamed down, they beamed down in these clothes. I don't think it's particularly a big deal, but a few do.
Over here.
They're all dead.
See if one of them is Cochrane. Data, let's go check the warp ship.
There isn't necessarily a ton to add to this specific scene. It's a wide shot showing the amount of damage and devastation that has been wrought. Picard and company are beaming down with more than just themselves, which would make a lot of sense. You'd have officers there who are from security and engineering to help out. Now, to be fair, they are transporting right into the middle of the city, but it's possible that the sensors would have shown that the denizens have scattered, so there may not be as much of a chance of any contamination with no one there. This is one of only 600 establishing shots this movie has, and it's not the worst one, so let's get to the complex. Some might chuckle at this, but the one thing I don't want this series to be is just nitpicking of the entire movie. While I can do it from time to time, generally I want what I break down, what I parse apart to have meaning. Believe it or not, when I get pedantic, I generally have it tie in. It is rare that I get ultra specific without it having some kind of tie to what we're looking at. When it comes to that type of thing, if you just want every piece broken down, there are channels that are much funnier than mine and do it a lot better. The reason I say that is because this initial scene doesn't add a lot to the lore, nor do they have a ton of callbacks, which makes me start to pick apart all of the technical aspects of it. First, that tricorder should have been able to not only tell Crusher that all of these people are dead as soon as she beamed down, but should have been able to identify if any of them were Zefram Cochrane. It would have also made the need for the phaser Picard is wielding unnecessary, as he would know there were no threats. If I'm being charitable, I guess I could argue that perhaps the radiation leak that we know about in the near future may have prevented them from seeing all of this. It would have just been nice for there to be dialogue to explain it, but anyway. I will say that the amount of death and devastation here can't be underemphasized. The camera work, dialogue, and music don't really give us the actual sense of possible defeat that it should. This may literally be the end of the world. It's a pivotal moment for Earth. This changed everything. So if the crew of the Enterprise fail, then everything is lost. Or at least, that's the way we should feel. Unfortunately, the scene doesn't tell us that. Imagine if Germany had gotten the first nuclear bomb, or what if the British had won the American Revolution, or perhaps the rebels had defeated the Union. This is something very, very serious. I wish they had added more weight to it, but that's just me. Also, and this is just me being annoyed, I will take a second to say I hate these scenes, the one where they're walking down the hallway. It's really unnecessary. Basically, what they're telling us here is that Picard and Data had to walk across a hallway to get to the rocket. I honestly don't think anyone would have questioned that there was a passageway that connected from the command center to where the rocket was. Well, maybe Red Letter Media, but we could all laugh at the fans who took them seriously when they made that joke.
The structural integrity of the missile appears to be intact, but there is significant damage to various sections of the fuselage and primary intercooler system.
Something worthy to note for this sequence is to remember that while most all of this was done at the Titan Missile Museum, all of these sound effects we're hearing, from the door opening to the footsteps, were probably added in post. You rarely get crisp, nice sounds like we hear here at the day of shooting. It's also a lot more difficult to make these things match up than you think. So I just wanted to give a few kudos. We'll talk more on Picard, Data, and the Phoenix after this. Hey guys, as you know, COVID-19 has finally hit YouTube, with advertisers not being able to pay and everyone being reduced in viewership. If you can, please consider giving at least $1 to patreon.com/Lore Reloaded. Let me be clear, I won't be seeing any of the money from this video, if I see any money at all, for at least 30 days or longer. This is being uploaded in June after the payment date, so that puts it in August that I'll get paid for it, again if CBS lets me have the money. So please consider going to Patreon, or if you don't like that option, you can always become a member by clicking at the bottom and join a YouTube membership. You'd be surprised at how much even $1 helps out. Thanks so much, and let's get back into it.
The structural integrity of the missile appears to be intact, but there is significant damage to various sections of the fuselage and primary intercooler system.
We should have the original blueprints in the Enterprise computer.
The fact that Picard and Data get to work on restoring the Phoenix to its original state, having the schematics brought down from the Enterprise, makes a lot of sense. They would have to repair the damage to the extent that they can so that the ship and the timeline can continue on. Splitting up into various groups, having the Phoenix being taken care of while still trying to find Cochrane makes sense. You would just have to prioritize both and have different teams to take care of it.
Commander LaForge, we need to bring a team down here. Hold your fire! We're here to help you!
Bullshit!
Captain, I believe I can handle this. Greetings.
Captain, this woman requires medical attention.
First, can I say how horrifying this has got to be? If we didn't know it was Data, and the point of view was shifted so that we were with Lily the entire time, this is what horror movies are made of. Data jumping down and getting lit up like the 4th of July would be scary as hell. Also, on that mark, there has been a lot of criticism from most all sides. No one seems to like this. However, I honestly never had a problem with it. There are a few things here. First, I know that a lot of critics will try to point out the time that Data was struck with the arrow in Cupid from Season 4, and how it did damage him. However, it's quite possible after that encounter he would reinforce his body to ensure that hits like that wouldn't hurt him going forward. Additionally, perhaps Data and others are wearing body armor. This honestly isn't that big of a stretch. They are on a hostile planet after World War III where everyone apparently has an automatic weapon. So wearing armor that would protect their torso under clothing when coming down to the surface really is the most logical thing to do. Whether this armor could take sustained hits like that and still be effective, I don't know. But even if that's unrealistic, I'd personally give it a pass given everything else in the universe. Lily, after seeing the fact that he's still alive, would pass out. Even if we assumed that Data had body armor, the only reason that Data is still standing is due to being an android. Anyone else would have been placed on their back from this. And she also wouldn't know about the fancy armor that can stop bullets, so it makes sense that she can't handle it.
Severe theta radiation poisoning.
Radiation is coming from the damaged throttle assembly.
We are all going to have to be inoculated. And I have to get her to sickbay.
Doctor.
Please, no lectures about the Prime Directive. I will keep her unconscious.
Very well. Tell Commander Riker to beam down with a search party. We need to find Cochrane.
Crusher to Enterprise. 2 to beam directly to sickbay.
We have less than 14 hours before this ship has to be launched. Picard to engineering.
LaForge here.
Geordie, Cochrane's ship was damaged in the attack. Get down here with an engineering detail. We have work to do.
Right. I'm on my way, Captain. Alpha Team, let's assemble in Transporter Room 3. We're heading down to the surface. Porter, you're gonna be in command till I get back.
Aye, sir.
And Porter, check out the environmental controls while I'm gone. It's getting a little warm in here. All right, let's go.
For the most part, this scene is getting everyone in place with a little foreshadowing. We have Lily and Crusher being beamed up to the ship to ensure they are in sickbay during the attack, and LaForge receiving his orders to get him and some of the engineering crew down to the planet. The radiation is used as an excuse for all of this to happen. There is a bit of foreshadowing with the environmental controls on the Enterprise not working, though it does bring up a really good point. The Collective went through a lot of trouble to get on that ship and not be detected. Why would they take the chance of being discovered by adjusting the temperature? Even if it is a little cold for them, the Borg can survive in the vacuum of space, so it's a minor inconvenience at best. It may be a requirement for them to begin accessing and overriding Starfleet controls, but that would feel like a bit of a flaw for such an advanced technology that the Borg would have. It could also be them setting up a trap and trying to draw in crew members for assimilation so they can get information and build the Collective. But I'd argue that they have the element of surprise and so really can just take the entire engineering bay without a fight. We're going to discuss that in the next episode. I promise it's coming.
Right.
Like a good spot right here. Yeah, Mark.
Isn't it amazing? This ship used to be a nuclear missile.
It is an historical irony that Dr. Cochrane would choose an instrument of mass destruction to inaugurate an era of peace.
It's a boyhood fantasy, Data. I must have seen this ship hundreds of times in the Smithsonian, but I was never able to touch it.
Sir, does tactile contact alter your perception of Phoenix?
Oh, yes. For humans, touch can connect you to an object in a very personal way, make it seem more real.
I am detecting imperfections in the titanium casing, temperature variations in the fuel manifold, but it is no more real to me now than it was a moment ago.
There are a few things in this scene particularly that I think audiences don't realize but really should appreciate. As a digital cinematography major, I really see how it makes everything pop. One of the first pieces is the amount of green lighting. At first, I thought this might be splashed from the green screens, but then when you analyze it, it's done on purpose. We see some of this lighting in the previous scene, but it's much more pronounced here. Additionally, at one point, it bathes both Picard and Data in green. This could symbolize that both Data and Picard will become intricately involved with the Borg later, which is just awesome. If I'm honest, I doubt they were being this dramatic on purpose. I don't think there were any cues putting the actors here, but the lighting was most definitely meant to foreshadow the Borg threat that still exists, as well as give the impression of the amount of damage the Phoenix has received. Green will generally symbolize, well, at least to American audiences, sickliness and being hurt, so it was a good way to get both points across.
But it is no more real to me now than it was a moment ago.
Would you three like to be alone?
LOL, everyone may be dead, including one of the most important figures in history, but hey, I can make a joke about you getting next to the Phoenix. Okay, I'm being a bit unfair. At first, I wanted to be pretty annoyed at this, but to be honest, I do jokes myself at times that probably aren't appropriate. I constantly have macabre and edgy humor. I feel like the best way to confront the various ills of society is to, while addressing them, laugh at them as well.
What have you found out?
There's no sign of Cochrane anywhere in the complex.
He has to be here. There was nothing more important to him than this ship. This flight, it was his dream.
Captain, we should consider the possibility that Dr. Cochrane was killed in the attack.
That's true. And the future may die with him.
As for Picard's dialogue and how the future will die with them, first, yes and no. If Cochrane had been dead, that's devastating, as I said. The movie, unfortunately, never gives the full implications if that had happened. But if he is dead, then you'd have to find someone else to take his place, maybe get Lily to do it. And I get it, it does create timeline contamination, but there isn't much else to do. Either Lily can take the slot or someone else. It's not perfect, but it beats nothing. Also, as we see that the Enterprise figures out how to almost instantly go home and travel through time, they could go back and defeat the Borg sphere before it's able to do this much damage. Again, you deal with timey-wimey stuff, but it beats the hell out of not having a future.
What do you think?
The entire environmental system's gone crazy. It's not just engineering, it's the entire deck. Maybe it's a problem with the EPS conduits. Hello? Hey!
Are you talking to me?
Is there anyone else working maintenance in this section?
Not that I know of.
So analyzing this scene where the Borg finally make their move is frustrating. First, I don't really like the acting of the actor at the beginning. His tone and pacing feel very off to me. I get the sense that this is something vitally important, but as far as he knows, the system is just on the fritz, no more than fixing a busted air conditioner. So the fact that he's pretty gung-ho on this is, I don't know. It's a personal gripe, it's subjective, you may like it, I didn't. We could also theorize that he wanted to fix it before Geordi got back so that he could look good in front of his superior. Or maybe he's frustrated because it doesn't make any sense. It really is a small thing, but it's something that adds to the scene. The more important piece is that these Starfleet engineers decide to hold the stupid stick. The guy I just talked about goes into the Jefferies tubes and you can hear him talking to the woman on the outside who's still working at the console. At first, when I watched this, I thought maybe he was talking to one of the Borg who were mimicking a voice, but no, re-listen to it. He's definitely talking to someone who's in engineering, so they're able to have a conversation, but she doesn't hear him scream. You might argue she did, and that's why she went in looking for him, but you're telling me that the guy asked if there was someone in the Jefferies tubes. She then hears him scream and doesn't call security. That's idiotic.
Paul? Paul? Are you okay in there?
And then, when he doesn't leave and she can't get him on communications, and I'm assuming can't see him on scanners as he'd now be Borg, she doesn't call for help? She just goes in there by herself? I have historically stated that Trek is horror in space, and this shows how that is true. They have the horror tropes and all. But beyond that, stay tuned as we see the first volleys occur in the battle for the Enterprise E. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.